Good morning, sir. I didn't even see you over there.
Oh, I'm sorry, he slipped in behind us.
I'm so used to being in the lower chamber. Oh yeah, really? Yeah, you think that's funny, but it's getting where it's not.
Much higher altitude, the air's a lot thinner.
That's right.
Please join me in the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day and all our blessings and for the opportunity we have to share with you. And just thank you for this weather. We'd like some rain, but we just thank you for the South Texas weather. And we thank you for this wonderful community that we have, the great county that we serve. And we just thank you for the leadership throughout the state of Texas and our government. Guide us, watch us, and keep us. Help us to walk in your way, and help us to resist any temptation that the devil might put before us. And just give us wisdom. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a quorum, and we have quite a list of people that want to be heard. Ms. Clark, are you?
Yes.
Do you want to speak now?
No.
Or at the agenda item?
I didn't know.
Okay, thank you. Diane Davis?
Diane, you're on Zoom. Diane, are you on? If you're on, you're on mute. If you want to speak now, you need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm here and I don't know what I'm doing, so, okay.
We just need to know if you want to speak now or during the agenda item.
I'll probably just be viewing, not speaking.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Linda Holtzman?
Linda, are you on mute?
Okay, now, no, I won't be speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
Dennis Chupi?
Dennis Chupi? Are you on mute?
Dennis Chupi? You see him anywhere, Colin?
No, I don't see him.
Pardon?
He's not in here.
Well, no, he's not in. Yeah. Christopher Baker? Christopher Baker? Andrew Kane, but you wanted to speak on the agenda item, right? Pat Russo, agenda items, right?
Yes, sir.
Got another Dennis, Charles Chupi.
Just ask if there's anybody here. Because
Anybody here want to speak now? Yes, sir.
I've got a business to run, so I'm going to do this now and let y'all continue on.
I gave y'all a copy of what my remarks because I may very well run out of time this morning. So, in 1960, Buffalo, New York was the 13th largest city in the United States. Today, it's not even in the top 100. An incredible migration south has taken place over the last 60 years due to climate, labor laws, tax policy, and availability of resources. Texas in particular has been a major beneficiary of this event, and some areas have benefited more than others. Texas today is exploding with people coming from poorly run states to take advantage of what is truly a balanced and opportunity-laden land. Aransas County, by contrast to other areas of the state, has no doubt been either left out or shut the door to this growth, and the time to change can no longer be put off to the future. Building a grand courthouse would not only send a message that we are open for business, it would be a clear invitation to look here first. I back building the largest possible courthouse we can, no matter what the cost, because it will serve us for generations to come. I would also like to pause just a moment before I continue my rant to remind everyone that even before the hurricane, the old courthouse was way too small, in somewhat disrepair and grossly obsolete. And although this may offend some of you, it was ugly. This will happen again at some point, but we have a chance to make sure we get more now for a longer period of time and not have the same thing happen again. Courthouses in Texas are the very essence of most communities. I remember years ago seeing a collage of every single courthouse in the state. In some counties, the grandeur and statement made was reflective of the community. Today, I visit San Antonio and still marvel at the beautiful stone structure that is the Bexar County Courthouse, which, by the way, is adjacent to the Bexar County Courthouse Annex, which had to be built in lieu of the fact that they outgrew the original building. In Sugar Land, Fort Bend County, visionaries built a government center that is surrounded by high-end retail, fine eateries, and luxury hotels. And we could realize a similar, albeit smaller and different result if we act with the same vision and boldness. I approach this decision from a business owner's perspective. I would borrow the capacity of the $24 million as the financial terms are very favorable. I want a larger courthouse at today's dollars so future generations don't have to add on later at an increased cost. Here are the facts. First, though, I've spent most of my career in the investment and mortgage banking business. For 20 years, I sold government and municipal bonds to institutional investors. I'm acutely familiar with municipal finance. I have a degree in accounting from the University of Mississippi, which is considered one of the top 10 accounting schools in the country. My point is, I do not come at this without some modicum of knowledge. At no point in the last 50 years have financial markets been more favorable to municipal financing projects, and the borrowing cost of this project will be insignificant in the long run. When put to a vote, most of the time the electorate votes no to these projects, mostly out of unfounded fears of higher taxes. Not until schools are falling down, roads are undrivable, and infrastructure has failed to the point of public hazard do voters finally acquiesce. When they finally do, they're using tomorrow's more expensive dollars and getting far less in terms of value than if they would have gone along with the original attempts. In short, this is a gift from Hurricane Harvey we must take advantage of. The matching dollars, the interest rates, the current financial health of the county, the economic climate all mean the time is right to act boldly. Let me elaborate further on the facts. And as of 2019, according to Google, there were 23,510 residents in Aransas County. If we borrow $15 million, that's $638 per resident over 25 years, or $25.52 per resident per year. Conversely, the annual revenue of Aransas County is about $18 million, or $765.63 per resident this year. So a 2% increase through the growth that we are experiencing in the county budget would mean that figure would grow to $780.30 per resident per year, making up $14.67 of the $25.52 debt burden we would incur. But wait, our county financial advisor says we can expect 5% growth this year. That would mean the annual revenue would grow to $803.91 per resident, or cover on the current budget, which will exceed in just 1 year the entire cost of the project by $12.76 per resident without any further growth. In this country, when we have acted boldly, the reward has been immeasurable. From our founding fathers to the Texans at the Alamo, to those who fought in the world wars, to those who sought to reach the moon, the treasure of their efforts has been priceless. Those who have acted cautiously have been left behind. Today and in this time, this is our bold opportunity. This project will cost us nothing in the long run with modest growth, which is inevitable. Our tax base needs to expand, and this will be a catalyst for just that. With significant growth, which I think we can have with what we are doing with the EDC and what is happening with adjacent cities and counties, we will be looked at by those in the future simply as how could they have considered doing less? Our history in this county has been one of caution. Our lack of embracing growth has destined us to have 70% of our children on the subsidized lunch program, and politicians in this town have failed to move that needle even one iota in the last 40 years. In essence, you and your predecessors are guilty of socially engineered poverty. Doing things the same old way will get the same old results. When I bought the Walmart, the naysayers, which were just about everyone in the community, said we'll never fill it up, we'll never make money, we'll fall flat on our face. Today, we have grown to 5 times the sales that we did in this very location. We're generating property taxes, more sales tax, more inventory tax by the same multiple of 5. At no time in my life have I seen more opportunity for success than right now, and no place like Aransas County. Our beautiful shoreline, our hospitable weather, our reasonable taxes are all attractive to any business looking to expand. However, our lack of a healthcare facility is a huge roadblock. Building a huge, beautiful courthouse that could also be an anchor for entertainment and restaurants and venues will send a clear signal that we are going to grow correctly, and hospital operators should be looking here first to expand. I believe the bigger the courthouse, the more jobs will be created. I'm not talking about just within the facility, but through the community. For too long, we have relied on the tax dollars of non-resident second homeowners to foot the bills here. It is time we grow wealth organically from within the community instead of just inviting it here for 3-day weekends from San Antonio and Houston. When kids graduate from our school system, they should have upwardly mobile opportunities to return to the community and raise families that will enjoy prosperity here. The actions of the past have denied that right to our children, and it's time to focus on them instead of our own generational bad decisions that have brought nothing but pain and sorrow to far too many here. The biggest possible version of the courthouse would be an economic juggernaut like nothing that has ever hit this community before except Hurricane Harvey. It will be a beacon of our intention to make this the jewel of the Texas coast. Not only do we need the biggest possible courthouse for the reasons it will be used for, we need it as a symbol to those who look this way that our intentions are onward and upward. I have a bold vision of this community. Looks nothing like you see today, but unless you become the aggressor, the instigator of change, a vehicle for which future residents will look back and thank you for, we will have nothing but a sad continuation of depending on outsiders for taxes and churning out more and more poverty. My wife and I have shown our commitment in many ways to this community, and we implore you to do the same by being visionaries yourself and voting to go bigger and better on a new and grand Aransas County courthouse. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, it's Phil Salini. I'm sorry. Thank you, sir.
And I'm going to work.
All right. All right. Next, John Jackson.
Commissioners, I'm here to talk about my reasoning for why the Anchor project should be moving forward. One of the things that came out of the long-term recovery plan, which had substantial community input and buy-in from all the governmental entities, was the Downtown Anchor project. It has offered hope and momentum and excitement for the downtown merchants, the Cultural Arts District, the Rockport Center for the Arts and Conference Center, the Bass Waterfront Development, the Navigation District Harborfront Boardwalk, and marina plans, all of which revive tourism, stimulate the economy, increase our tax base, and provide jobs, and on and on. The entities in this community work together, and how the county and city came together combined in a combined footprint with shared parking and Celebration Community Plaza in the core of the downtown area. So many of the finest towns in this state have a public square that is the heart of their downtowns. So I say this as our coastal version of a public square where the governmental entities are located in one central area to become the anchor hub of activity, which I believe will set us apart and other towns around us will envy. During the process of doing this over the last couple of years, public meetings were held multiple times, and I think any person who took the time or who was involved or showed interest has been well aware of the process and its progress. But let's talk specifically about the courthouse. It may surprise some of the public that we've been planning to replace the old courthouse many years long before Harvey. But for the most part, it was a dream and a passive process that ebbed and flowed as we kicked that can down the road. But then Harvey made the decision for us, and also for the city of Rockport. I've personally lived through 5 hurricanes here in my lifetime, and I can tell you every time we came out better on the other side. On this particular project alone, the long-term recovery team has identified approximately $13 million in direct funds, as well as millions in cost savings by the economies of scale derived from working together instead of independently. I hope everyone fully understands that if we don't follow through with replacing our courthouse at whatever size it is, that we are effectively turning our backs on up to $13 million. Several years before Harvey, we actually had hired an architect, and there were plans drawn up for a 73,000 square foot courthouse at that time. It was planned to be one that would accommodate growth over the next 25 to 50 years. But after Harvey destroyed our courthouse, we basically had to start over with the 70,000 plus size, but this included combining the tax office and the election annex, but this time by working with the city, all of which accrued to the benefit of citizens and taxpayers. But first, as you know, we had to have a temporary solution, which is the building we're in right now. And though this building has gotten us this far, it's definitely not the best long-term solution. For one, it's too small. Purchasing the center would take $6 to $8 million off the tax rolls, and state law does not allow for for-profit businesses to be tenants of the county, which means the county would be forced to effectively evict business people, and that would not go over very well, in my opinion. The building is over 40 years old, has maintenance issues, leaky roofs. I understand that Hurricane Hannah, or Tropical Storm Hannah, that some of the computers had to be covered with plastic because of leaks. As of October, the county is going to have to start paying rent on this facility at $15,000 a month. And then I understand possibly going up to $20,000 a month beginning in January. But the bottom line is it will cost almost $250,000 annually for rent if we stay in this facility. Investing any taxpayer money in this 40-year-old structure would not be the best use of our tax dollars, in my opinion. Back to the anchor project. By combining the county and city facilities, citizens benefit substantially from the economies of scale, working together on planning, parking, architecture, engineering, and other soft costs. And the public would get direct access and benefit to Celebration Plaza, for which we have received $3.5 million free grant from the GLO, which does not require a match. So this started out with a 73,000 square foot plan. Earlier this year, I observed that the county took the next step to hire PGAL architectural firm during the highly public RFQ process, and followed that with hiring Broadus as our construction manager at risk in May. But all along, for well over a year, the commissioners were made aware that there was going to be a gap in the funds needed for a courthouse that would require debt financing to fill that gap. This is not unlike an average citizen who does not have the cash to build a house, so they have to get a mortgage to finance new construction. Everyone can relate to that. But this is the people's house. It's the only difference. It wasn't until June that the newly hired construction manager was able to share what the cost would be for a reduced 55,000 square foot, 3-story courthouse. The construction manager and architectural firm consulted with county officials, department heads in one-on-one interviews, while all along the long-term recovery team was conscious and aware, since they knew there was going to be a funding gap, to value engineer this process to minimize that gap. And throughout the process, the team was continuing to seek other funding to support the cost of the courthouse. Those funds secured so far were $6.2 million in insurance funding, possibly and maybe negotiating for more, $3.5 million GLO grant I just mentioned, and the FEMA funds, which started out at $2.9 million and then add up to $3.4 million. Preliminary cost estimates for the 3-story courthouse came in higher than what we'd hoped, primarily because approximately 30% higher construction costs since the original estimates. So earlier this summer, the court asked the construction manager and the architect to research the idea of downsizing this courthouse to 46,000 square feet by dropping it back to 2 stories. When I heard that, I honestly wondered if that really made sense because the experts who had studied this had advised otherwise. And also because I remember back when the city of Rockport built its brand new city hall on Market Street, that it was too small the day it opened. I've had occasion to be in attendance at many commissioner meetings this past year, mainly on EDC issues. I've personally witnessed how this has played out. And I was there that day on July 13th, when some have said this call for a bond issue was sprung on the court and the public at the last minute. I can assure you it did not happen intentionally that way because I was present and observed it. On that day, there was a vote scheduled to consider going forward with a 2-story, 46,000 square foot courthouse. But department heads and 2 district judges spoke firmly that the space, especially for the state mandated judicial portion, which takes about 50% of the space, spoke loud and clear that the reduced space was inadequate for their state mandated needs. This discussion lasted over an hour. And then commissioners started talking about, well, what if we went back to the original 3-story version? How would that impact the numbers? And being caught off guard, one of the architects threw out the $10 million estimate, which they found out later was about twice what it should have been, maybe more. So next, our financial advisor, Bob Henderson, came forward and did a very good job of explaining and informing the county commissioners about how much the county will save because of historically low interest rates, which would now make it possible to borrow more if needed to consider revisiting the former 3-story version, which would not only solve and address the space issue, which were expressed, but also be big enough to accommodate the growth of the county and its workload over the next 20 to 25-year life of the bonds, but also an additional 25 more years. And again, this is not really unlike what any homeowner can and should consider. Simply because of much lower rates, you could now build a bigger house without having higher mortgage payments. And I ask you, why wouldn't you do that? Again, this is the people's house. At that time, we didn't have the current appraisal numbers. Bob estimated an increase in tax rate of about 1.6 cents off on that day, but at the end of the month, after the appraisals came in, determined the gap was less than $20 million. After all, and that the county could easily service that debt with a lower tax rate, especially after refinancing its debt and the fact that a significant part of the county's debt will be paid off in the next few years. I'm fully aware of how much impact interest rates have on debt financing because I work for the largest financial services firm in the country. So when the commissioners examined the expressed need for more space, coupled with the gift of historically low rates, everyone there could see that this meeting had evolved and was no way sprung upon the court or the public, in my view. It just unfolded naturally. And then when you add that rates will very likely not stay low because of the unprecedented monetary and fiscal stimulus of the federal government that pumped out all the money, it would not surprise anyone in the financial services sector, which I live in, that rates can only go up from here and then it can happen swiftly. Bob Henderson shared with me that his estimate for every 0.25% increase in interest rates will result in $500,000 of additional interest payments for the county. And that if rates were to rise by just 2%, a real possibility, this could be as much as $8 million over the life of the loan. The taxpayers of this county will have to pay extra or pass on to the next generation. How could we live with that? And then when you factor in the annual construction cost increases of up to 10% per year, it makes absolutely no sense to kick this can down the road any longer because there's very likely never be a better time to lock in these rates, which will save our taxpayers much more money in the long run, and we'll have a courthouse that will accommodate growth and be much more efficient in many other ways. Cost savings are combining the anchor project for the economies of scale and almost $13 million of grant funding and insurance proceeds at a time when rates are at historical lows. This is what I call a no-brainer. Do the math. It would be imprudent in my mind if this court would not be carrying out its fiduciary obligation to its citizens by not doing everything we can to take advantage of all this just as soon as possible before the market opportunity slips away from us. And especially now, because with the new appraised values, this can be done with actually a decrease in the tax rate. And yes, I know when valuations go up, you still pay more in taxes. However, we don't have any control over that. But we do have control over some things. And the cost of being able to, and I think that if taxes go up here because appraised values are higher, it's because that's the cost of being able to live in a charming coastal town in one of the lowest tax states in the country. Let's not be penny wise and pound foolish and shoot ourselves in the foot by arguing over a 2-story or a 3-story courthouse that will carry us for the next 4 to 5 decades at no cost, at cost to the taxpayers, which will likely never be less than what it is today. I'm almost finished, folks. No one disputes the right of citizens to petition this court. The law clearly allows that. But if we do take this to the voters, we cannot afford to lose this anchor project at whatever level for all these reasons. And we also don't want to run the risk of losing up to $13 million of additional funds, which will cause a domino effect on many other things riding on this project. Here's a partial list of those. And let me paint the big picture, because if we don't approve our anchor project, what's going to happen to City Hall? Will we then lose the economies of scale and inherent cost savings? What happens to the downtown businesses? What happens to Celebration Plaza? How's the Art Center Conference Center impacted? How about the match for the micro hospital and other hazard mitigation projects where a match is necessary from some of these funds? How does this impact plans being made by the Navigation District in its boardwalk, waterfront plans, and marina? What will happen to the delay of the Bass waterfront development because we can't even work together to follow through on this project? What happens to the local economy, the city's downtown master plan? How will outside investors size us up when considering bringing private capital here? How will tourism be impacted? How will overall economic development be impacted? I fear the answer to all of these questions will have a negative ripple effect that could set us back and cause a house of cards to fall that will take decades to recover from. And then finally, there's the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is something which is almost impossible to quantify. It's an economic term that refers to the value of what you would have to give up in order to choose on something else. In a nutshell, it's the value of the road not taken. So I see the delay in following through on the anchor plan as all risk with no reward if we can't come together on this pivotal piece. Let's all work together and approve a new courthouse before it's too late, because we have the right to vote. If we come away with nothing after that election, it's all for naught. It may not have been the right decision. So there's a lot of quantifiable risk we've talked about that can be measured if we can't move forward. But when you add up the lost opportunity cost, this would be a very unfortunate and shameful outcome, and we need to do all we can to avoid it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Leave out anyone. All right, then, we'll go to the consent agenda items. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, we do have that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a statutory yearly requirement if I want to collect a $10 records management fee. Basically, I have a plan. It's the same plan I've had for a long time. It deals with how the records are kept, what has to be preserved. And, you know, it takes money and space to do that. I can tell you, we're working on scanning old files. We're doing that in-house. That's a huge savings to the taxpayer. I have things I can scan and shred. I have things I can scan and have to keep. And then I have things that I can scan and not only have to keep, but have to preserve. So this is what the money's for. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if not, I'm going to be asking I'm going to be asking you to approve a $10 fee. It's wrong in the agenda. It should say $10 and not $10,000 per civil case. But it,
Crazy with the zero.
well, you know, it happens, but it's also for 2021, not 2020. So I'm going to be, I don't know if that can be amended today and then approved, or if it needs to be on another agenda. Either way is fine. So,
I think it could be amended.
okay.
Judge, I have no questions.
Okay.
This is a normal reoccurring thing.
Yes, sir.
And I've
Yearly
heard this-
statutory
I've heard this
requirement.
before, so, but I appreciate the fact, and I think everybody should appreciate the fact that everything that we do here is governed by state law.
Exactly.
I would make a motion, Judge.
Wait a minute.
This is
That
public
was a
hearing.
public
It is just
hearing.
public hearing.
It's a public hearing. So if anybody has any questions.
Anybody have any comments? Any questions? Make a motion
Make
to
a
what?
motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Thank you very much.
Second from Mr. Castelline. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you all.
All right, now we're in consent agenda item, and as she said, item number 5.
Judge, I'd make a motion
I
to.
think the county
correct that.
attorney is saying we can't proceed, we can't amend that.
Oh, sorry about
We
that.
can't amend that.
All right.
Sorry about that, Pat.
So
Next Monday.
move to table number 5,
Motion made to table
table number 5.
Second.
number 5. Second,
Second.
Commissioner Cheney, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now, let's get the rest of the consent.
Judge, I'd
agenda.
make a motion to approve the other consent items.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded by Commissioner Cheney, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. County projects, discuss, approve, disapprove, options approved by Texas Department of Emergency Management, meeting for the future of hazard mitigation grant program, project 4332-017, Fulton Beach Road Shoreline Resiliency Grant.
We went on a tour with people from Fulton Beach Road to see the stuff that Charles took us to see in Mesquite Bay, and it's kind of strange because the people on there seem to be in favor of that, but we had one gentleman from Shell Ridge said, absolutely, I don't want that. We don't want that on our project. We like what's proposed instead, so I
Well,
think it was a nice trip that Charles put together for us on that.
okay.
I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have more involvement from Rockport and Fulton on this, since it's in both their jurisdictions. Didn't really have anybody here.
I have contacted all 3 entities and requested if they wanted to discuss this with us. We were more than happy to discuss it and do something with it. I haven't heard anything from anybody.
I would echo Commissioner Castelline's comments. These are the bulk of these grants are being expended in jurisdictions that are controlled by town of Fulton and city of Rockport, and in some cases the NAB district. My way of thinking, unless we have some good plan and cooperation from those folks, I would simply think we ought to set this on the table until a plan to go forward that's acceptable to everyone and to the funding agencies can be arrived at.
I also went off on that. I also joined them on the boat tour Friday, to look at the alternatives to a treatment of the shoreline, including the articulated mat that Charlie Belair, the engineer, talked to us about last week. The residents were very enthusiastic about how that articulated mat works. I know we may have trouble getting FEMA interested in it, but I would really like to see us explore some avenue for pursuing that approach instead of the breakwater. So if that means we need to table today until we can have more talks with the other local governments, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Well, my, Mr. Ellis was from Shell Ridge, and Shell Ridge, he kind of represents them out there. I haven't had a conversation to talk with anybody with Shell Ridge, but they don't think that the articulated mat, although it's a good idea in some areas, does not fit their needs. They do not want to hold off on that. So
Right. The Shell Ridge folks like what's out there. That
Yes.
it's quite different from what's proposed for Fulton or Lamar. The people on Lamar are also starting to get interested in the articulated mat approach.
as I was saying.
Sorry, Jack.
Oh, that's okay. As I was saying, I don't want Shell Ridge to be held up by any delays, because they lost almost all their piers out there because of a minimal hurricane. And they're ready to get something done. So I'm not in favor of tabling it.
Each of these projects is a separate permit.
They're all separate.
Yes.
Can we just table Fulton and
I don't know,
Lamar and go forward on Shell Ridge?
That is the agenda.
Yeah,
item.
that's the agenda item
It's
is
only
only
Fulton Beach
the
Road.
rest of those projects are not on the agenda.
John, you had something to add to this or
Well,
not?
sorry, but later on in the agenda, there's something about halting the engineering contracts on all three. So I
No.
just want to tie
No.
that in.
No, it's not, it's extending the time.
timelines.
It's the
Okay,
extending the
yeah,
time on the contract of Mott McDonald.
So that gives us flexibility.
Okay, so
Judge, I'd make a motion
Just here to answer questions.
to approve the tabling of this particular item until we get some more definitive information from the
you want to give
controlling
a time,
entities.
give a timeline on that?
I'd give them another 30 days to at least show some interest and respond.
John, what do you think? Is there some kind of a deadline or drop dead?
The only thing that happened right now is the deliverables which for phase one, which is the engineering and studies and stuff, has been with FEMA now since November. And then we had to resubmit them again in January because they couldn't find them. But that's 9 months ago or 8 months ago. So they could either approve it or continue to going on it. If they approve it, then we either going to, at this point, we lose the option of being able to put it on the shelf.
Why don't we just table it for a week? We can always table it again at each meeting. It's easy.
Well, you know, if you look again at what Hannah did, you know, I tried to drive down Fulton Beach Road. I could not do that.
No, you
So we
couldn't.
got to do something, and tabling it, putting it on a shelf does not keep that road from eroding or the people losing property.
Right.
I think it's necessary that we go ahead and do that. And I realize that's not my precinct, and I normally would go with the commissioner that's in that precinct because they know a lot more about it. And I normally would not go against the people that live in the area.
Absolutely not.
We've got to do something. Either that or Fulton Beach Road's going to go away.
But
Not
The-
today.
the jurisdictions who are in control of that area
Mhm.
need to do something.
Yeah, I agree.
And so they've been given an option to step up. And if they want to choose to try to reevaluate this grant and go back to FEMA and try to reevaluate it, the option has been presented to them. So all we have
What
to,
about the Commissioner's Court requesting a written plan for action from any of the affected jurisdictions requesting transfer of hazard mitigation project for Fulton Beach?
sounds
in
good
the
to me.
next 30 days. And then in that plan, they should ask the county to transfer our permit, all project responsibilities and especially outline how the jurisdiction would accomplish the work associated with phase 2 of the grant. That's an option
Yeah.
for time.
If we can have the cities, or the city or the town or decide that, or even the NAV district decide that it's important enough that they have control of it to come and agree with us
Problem,
that, you know, they can do that.
the
I
prob-
like the idea of asking the other local entities for a plan. I'm just suggesting there's no reason not to table it for a week because we may want to talk about it again in a week and we want it to be on the agenda to give us that freedom. But asking them for a plan in 30 days sounds great.
The problem with it is that it has to be a combined effort. It cannot be just either or. So the NAV district can't do it alone because they have half the project or more than half the expense of the project lies in the right of ways of at the city of Rockport and the town of Fulton. So they, all three of those entities have to get together and pull it together. So if they can do that in 30 days and offer it back to us, we're fine with it.
But in the meantime, we run the risk of FEMA coming along and saying,
FEMA says all of a sudden to me, yeah,
and then it's out of our hands.
then if we then we're going
So
to,
either or vote at that point.
yeah, then we have a choice of keeping it or turning it down.
Since they could get back to us at any time, why don't we keep it on the agenda for next Monday so we'll be free to talk about it then?
Sure.
We always have unintended consequences every time we get involved.
Well, I move we table for a week.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, I think. Commissioner Castellane from Navigation District would like to say something.
Folks, my name is Mickey. I've lived in Fulton all my life. I am a commissioner for that precinct with the Nav District. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What I came here to talk about was not to armor Fulton Beach again. Fulton Beach was armored by rubble after Celia, and that's what you see, and that's why you see the road disappearing. There are my students of marine engineering. I've been a warranty surveyor with marine construction in Venezuela and Mexico and different places, and I'm a student of the Dutch. And if you'll recall, the Dutch captured the North Sea. And armoring a beach does not build beach. There's dozens of reports on this for the last 20 years. What I'd like for y'all to do is look at the subject of drift fencing, wave fencing, and such. And what this does is it captures, instead of a hard surface on the beach, it captures the action of the sea and the sand and will actually build beach rather than have the sea come in against that rubble or that sophisticated wall that they want to put up and just bounce away and kick out. One of the problems you have with Fulton Beach Road is now you no longer have any sand flats or sandbars off of it because of the armoring that's been taking place since Celia. There's some better ways to do it that aren't as expensive. Drift fencing and wave fencing is just cedar posts. There are 100 piers between Trailer Street and Tin Can Point. And if we had a drift fence or a wave fence, whatever, that's what the Dutch call it, on each, and 1/3 of those, say 30 of those, well, you'd have a beach building up there instead of washing out to sea. The prime example, the only drift fence or wave fence on Fulton Beach Road is the end of Trailer Avenue, right there north of what's now called Allegro North. And if you'll go down there and drive, you'll see that in this last occasion of this high wind and tide, that the sea actually stacked oyster shell up on top of Fulton Beach Road. They scattered it for about 12 feet from the sea, from the wave on back, and about a foot high. I'd like to point out that none of that action destroyed the road. It just stacked it on top. Whereas if you go about 100 yards north and look at the O'Connor property where they put a wall on it, they've lost all their property. They've lost 4 palm trees. And so there's some ways to do it. They don't look as sophisticated. They don't spend as much money. The only other thing that I would suggest is if we were to really want to spend some money like that rock wall, that would consider what's called a submerged breakwater or a barrier reef, and that take place out about the end of where the piers are, where the sea would come over it. It wouldn't stick above the sea. But the main thing is, please look at what the Dutch, even the Yankees on the Atlantic coast have started copying the Dutch and have built their beaches with wave fences and with drift fences. And there's pictures of it. There's a construction company called Coastal Construction up in Maryland. They have photos all over the web. And so surely if the Dutch and the Yankees can figure out a way to take care of the beach against the Atlantic Ocean, that perhaps a few Texans might figure out how to rebuild 2 miles of Fulton Beach. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, before you leave, I appreciate your comments, and I wish you would share those through our project manager, John Strothman, and mention those directly to the engineers that gave us this plan.
Okay, you want to talk about engineers? The Dutch for over 50 years have had a project called Building Through Nature. I notice now that the Corps of Engineers also has a system called Building Through Nature. I'd like to find and talk to those folks.
There's always a better way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And Ms. Russo, you had something?
I'm not exactly sure with the proposal as it is right now offered, and I know Wendy has said about tabling it. If the county's plan is to just ask the other entities to assume this design, and if they want to reformat it, so be it. And maybe they'll get the grant, maybe they won't, and the county will just wash its hands of it. I'm not sure if that was the intent. Was not real clear on the concept. As Mr. Jackson so eloquently pointed out, the community works better when it works together. So if the county is just looking to bring in partners to help develop a better plan, I don't know if the FEMA money has, I don't even know if it's really been committed. Maybe they've talked about it and said, if the plan works, we'll commit it. So I don't know if it's reserved. I don't know if it's obligated. I don't know what its status is. But if they've had the drawings since November, lost them, and then they were resubmitted, is there a way that you could ask them to hold those drawings? Perhaps we would like to make a few changes. And if once the entities have worked together and come up with a better plan that works longer and costs less, and for whatever reason, the benefit cost analysis that Mr. Whitson talks about isn't high enough to get this particular FEMA grant, would there not be other grants available that would help with the shoreline mitigation?
Mrs. Russo, it's my
Yes, sir.
understanding that we've made overtures to the other entities. We're not getting a response. Those are the entities that have primary jurisdictional control of those areas. So our hands are pretty much tied without getting those people to at least respond to it.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Smith. I know from speaking to the other entities, their position is they've tried to have input and not been able to be heard.
I haven't heard that at all.
I have heard that frequently from all of those entities.
And I don't want to get into a he said, she said situation. I'm just saying that's the information I've received.
Okay, well, there we go.
Thank you.
William?
Yeah, Judge, hopefully y'all can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, let me try and untangle this a little bit for you. Right now, the only project on the table for consideration is the Fulton Beach Road project because we've completed the work for phase one, which is the study, evaluation, and analysis. We believe that everything is in order to receive the FEMA grant to construct the project. But there were objections to the project as proposed. And in all due respect to the gentleman who spoke about the Dutch and all the other engineering solutions, I am sure there are other ways. Unfortunately, if you want the federal money, you have to go through their process, which is the BCA analysis. So what we're saying is, let's take a pause. Let's reach out to the other jurisdictions. If they want to assume responsibility for the project, no problem. FEMA and TDM, TDM said, but I assume they speak for FEMA. We can transfer that responsibility and they can go through all the analysis and other approaches that they would like. But the bottom line is you have to reach a certain BCA score to be able to get the federal money. Otherwise, you're on your own to build whatever project you want. So the bottom line is here, let's take a chance to reach out to the groups. As the judge has indicated in his recommended motion, this is what we've discussed with TDM. Give them time. If they come forward with a plan and we want to transfer it to them, great. If we don't, then we're going to have to wrap up the project, stick the study on the shelf, and TDM and FEMA will be fine with that. And there will be no further money, no further action on the road or the project. If that's the way the people want it, then that's where we are, and there will be no harm, no foul, no penalty. But to get the federal money to build a project or re-engineer it would have to be at the expense of the other jurisdiction. And at this point, you have to score a certain amount on the BCA to receive federal assistance. And you've got to go through the same process we've been through. We've been doing this now for 2 years. And so at this point, we've reached a conclusion, and it's either transfer it or have the other jurisdictions take up the cause and see what they can do. Maybe they can reach a better result than we did, but they still have to go through the same process to score the grant funds. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
You got a second on?
Yes, we got a motion. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't know what the other week's gonna do, but
I don't-
Opposed?
Anyway, let's see what happens in next week. All right, item number 9, discuss, approve, disapprove a proposal. Yes, it was unanimous.
No.
No,
Cheney
no, I'm
voted
sorry.
I voted
Commissioner Cheney voted against it.
Oh,
And I voted against it just simply to say we need to move forward with something.
okay. Approve, disapprove a proposal to place a proposed certificate of obligation bond as referred to as county's notice of intent to publish on or about July 15, 2020 on the ballot on November 3rd, election an amount of, to be specific, but not to exceed $19.9 million.
This was my item on the agenda. I will say that after I placed it on the agenda early last week, but sometime after the deadline for amending the agenda, apparently we got input from the bond council. There's a technical problem with it that I hope we can talk today about how to solve. As I understand it, since it refers to the certificate of obligation that we noticed out, if we haven't yet received the petition, even though I think they have received their signatures, but they're still checking them and being sure, we can't call whatever we do a certificate of obligation. If we want to put it on the ballot right now, we need to call it a general obligation. The main difference between those two is whether you need an election, and since we're headed toward an inevitable election anyway, that shouldn't matter very much to us. But I don't know whether it can be done today. I suspect it would have to be renoticed and require a special meeting probably Thursday. We're all aiming at an August 17th deadline for getting it, statutory deadline for getting it on the November ballot and not pushing it to the May election. What I'm trying to do is figure out a technical path that bond council's happy with that lets us put a bond, whether it's a CO or a GO bond, on the ballot by August 17th, however we need to do that, because otherwise we're looking at a May election, and that's possible, but not as good.
Commissioner Lawbeck, what are the chances that you folks are going to have these 5% of the registered voters in here sign a petition by the close of business today?
It's not my petition. I have no control over what the petitioners are doing.
I'm just asking, what are the chances that that's going to be accomplished?
I don't know. There we go. We have
Kane,
the petition
please.
here. Andrew Kane.
Thank you, Charlie. My name's Andrew. The reason why I came today was to answer that specific question. So 2 weeks ago, I was here. I thought, I was like, maybe we'll scale back to the 2-story. At that time, when I talked here 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know there was a such thing as petition. When I went home that night, because I didn't feel the Commissioner's Court wants to listen to the people, I found out about petitions. So let's keep in mind, 14 days ago, we didn't know there was a petition. We didn't start a petition until 8 days ago. So 8 days ago was the first day we had a petition, because it takes a couple days to get legally done with the Secretary of State. In the 8 days, which is mostly 2 weekends, 11 hours a day, the citizens have poured in. So I can look you straight in the eye and tell you I have several hundred more signatures than this petition is required. Specifically, I have over 908 signatures, and there's other petitions that aren't even turned in yet. We're required to have 5% of the active voters, which is 15,000, not the registered voters, which is 17,500. So we need 752 signatures, but it's a moving target as people register every day. But it could be 754 or 755. But there is no doubt, and I'll meet with you anywhere you want tomorrow and let you review the petition.
My comment is, I too think it's what most of the people in the room say we need to move ahead with this. I don't want to see it go out to next May. To that extent, if you need another signer, I will sign it, because I have immense faith and the voters of this county to make a good decision, given all the information that we have.
And that's what this is about.
Fair enough.
John
We're on
said
the
it's the
same
people's
page.
house and the people want to vote on it.
Look, it's short. If you can't turn that in this afternoon, then the court will have to, my understanding is we'll have to call a special meeting and redesign it, not as a certificate of obligation, but a bond election. Isn't that true, Judge?
I believe so. Mr. Anderson?
Let me see. You don't mind-
But if you could go ahead and stay here, but we're just saying, if you can file it today. we can go
I
forward
could
on
file
that.
today. I could file today. We have a short notice to do this. We're only 8 days into it. We have till the 31st technically to file this. Michelle wants it by the 24th. She wants 8 days to certify it. But the reason why I'm not turning this in today,
Yeah, you've got until the 31st. Actually, you may have more time.
okay, the reason why I'm not turning it in,
But here's the problem.
Well,
That would
can I
be
answer the
too late
question?
to get it on the November election. That's
okay,
our issue.
I just wanted to answer the question why I'm not turning it in today, because I could.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is because there are a lot of people that still want to be a part of this process. So I'm going to give them another week, all week this week, and another weekend, so that more people can sign on to this, because it seems to be an important topic for the citizens. So that's why we're not.
As I understand it, if you turn it in initially today, we could spend 5 days certifying it and you'd still have a chance to supplement it. All those people could sign and get on the supplement.
Right. Luckily, I have a lot of volunteers with a lot of knowledge. And yes, option B of that election rule says that we can get a second submission only if we have more than 10% of the required votes or signatures, and we turn it in at least 11 days before, then the county can certify it in 5 days, get back to us, and if we're short, we could have a second submittal. But we are actually looking up the voter ID numbers via our apps. When people sign up, we are actually finding out they are active. Yes, they are Aransas.
I
So-
think what you're saying is if you turn it in today and you're not short, they won't get their chance to supplement. But I'm asking you, would you consider
No.
filing it today, even though you can't supplement later? Because you have enough already.
No, for the simple purpose of it, this is part of the democratic process that's put in front of us. And we have citizens that still want to take part of that process. And to shut down a petition that we had 45 days to run and shut it down in 8 days would be not fair to the citizens of this.
I haven't seen the petition. What's the petition say?
Petition says, well, I got it in my car.
Well, I'm not out in your car.
Right.
What does the petition say?
The petition says that,
We want an election.
yeah, we want an election. I mean, it's just going to a bond. And so it's not about yes or no on a courthouse. It's not about option 1, 2, or 3. It's about y'all won't be able to vote. The 5 of y'all cannot decide for the citizens on the people's house. That it will force it to a bond election. I'm sorry?
I thought that's why we were elected.
State law
No, sir.
says
You were
they
elected to
get
listen to the
an
people's silly
election.
comments.
I
And
have-
that's what we're going
I
to do.
listen to people in my precinct, and I haven't found but 2 in my precinct. Now, you may have a dozen, or you may have a bunch, I don't know, that don't trust me to make a good decision.
Jackie, it's
You
moot
have
now.
got, Jack, you've got to
We're
be
going
kidding.
to have
Excuse me.
an election.
Yeah, we-
Ms. Clark, would you like to stand up and speak,
The-
please? Just a minute. All right, but Ms. Clark signed up first.
Some of us are short. All right, good morning. My name is April Clark, and I have lived within Precinct 1 of Aransas County for the past 13 years. My husband was born and raised in Rockport, and our children are the 4th generation of our Clark family to live within Aransas County. Even though our roots run deep in this county, I do not believe any of you know me or my husband. And just as importantly, prior to August 1st of 2020, I had never met any of the individuals responsible for creating the petition. Why do I feel like that's important that you know that? Because throughout the years of living in Aransas County and observing our local politics, I have seen political races and projects get distracted by personal conflicts and individual vendettas. Government progress can at times be slowed down by what people label as naysayers or those individuals that enjoy being a pain in the local government side. Please be assured that my family is none of those things. There's only one fundamental reason that my family continues to participate in this petition process. Through the last several months of this pandemic, American citizens as a whole, we have experienced increased regulations of our daily life. And because of that, it has become clear to me that as Americans, we must start standing our ground and fight for our fundamental rights before they slowly erode and expose a country that we no longer recognize. One of our fundamental rights is our right to vote. It is upon that single principle that my family continues to take part in this petition process. When I researched certificate of obligations in Texas, I became even more convinced that the petition process was appropriate. COs are often intended for emergency construction projects. However, if the new courthouse talks did begin prior to Harvey, as was stated last Thursday night and this morning, and then Harvey itself was almost 36 months ago, then this hardly constitutes an emergency project that should bypass voters. The difference between your August 31st deadline and a November 3rd election is 64 days. 64 days to allow the residents to vote on a courthouse that you yourselves hope will last 75 plus years. 64 days to allow the residents to vote on the courthouse that at this point is going to carry 25 years of debt. And 64 days for the residents to vote on a courthouse, which you yourself, sir, labeled the people's house. I'm not asking for anything out of the ordinary. It is common practice to take bond decisions to the people, allow the voters to decide where they want to spend their money, how much they're willing to spend, how long they're willing to pay. Today, the 5 of you had the opportunity to demonstrate to the residents of Aransas County that you recognize the importance of hearing from the people, your constituents, and communicate your acknowledgement of the people's fundamental right to a vote. It should be noted that anyone that's watching this at home, that a CO does not have to be used in only emergency construction situations. And this type of financing is in fact gaining wider use in recent history because it bypasses the time constraints of an election process. That should concern all of us. If a strong message is not sent by the residents of Aransas County with this CO, then what is to prevent our officials from using this type of financing again and circumventing us a second time? How we respond to this CO will set a precedence for future projects and their funding. Today, if the commissioners do not vote to place this on the November ballot, then I encourage our residents of Aransas County to sign the petition to force a bond election in November. If neither of those things happen, then the residents of Aransas County are subsequently sending a message of tolerance. Tolerance when their right to vote is taken away. Do not be mistaken. I am in agreement that we need a new courthouse and that we need a new one built and one that finally represents our community. What I'm asking is that you do not use a financial process that circumvents your constituents. Please use the data that you've gathered to come up with a floor plan and size that meets today's needs, allows for tomorrow's growth, with the price tag that your taxpayers will endorse. Mr. Cheney, as a resident of Precinct 1, I'm respectfully asking you to cast your vote in favor of placing this on the November ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Ms. Clark, before you got up, I made the comment that I too want an election.
Yes, sir, I heard you.
The situation this morning that you're referring to on item number 9, Mrs. Lawbeck has already said is technically deficient. We can't do that. It's against the law.
I understand that.
In order to
May I
go
respond?
down, that's why I asked the questions pointedly to try to find out whether the ability to even have it on the November 3rd election can be accomplished by petition, because that's the only way that we can go forward at this point in time.
Not the only way.
Wait a minute. Otherwise, what we're going to have to do, as I pointed out, is have a special meeting and then let the county commissioners vote on putting it out for a bond election. We do have the authority to do that, and I favor that. I definitely want an election. I'm not here to deprive
No doubt
anybody.
there's going to be an election.
Yeah.
We understand
And
that.
here's the situation. I want to clear up and answer any questions that these folks might have. And the facts are there. You're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to the facts. We'll lay the facts out. We'll have as many town halls or as many workshops as is necessary to explain to the public exactly what this is all about. And along those lines, I'm still getting emails saying, are you folks going to actually borrow $24,250,000 even though a week ago we said no. And that was used on Friday night to attract people in to sign a petition. I really want the public to be adequately informed as to what the numbers actually are. The actual number on the courthouse portion of these COs right now is $17,236,000. $17,236,000. Did you know that number?
Mr. Smith, I believe that you have me confused with someone that has drafted your petition and as opposed to
No, I'm not.
someone who has
I'm
participated.
with you. I want an election, but I want it to be based on the facts.
Yes, sir, but I believe that the comments that you're making would be more appropriately addressed to the individual that has.
He's right there behind you.
Okay, but you addressed myself.
Have at it.
Ms. Clark.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Can I answer his question about the facts? I'm tired of hearing about it too, so I can just.
Sure.
Yeah.
So-
use the mic so Zoom can hear you.
Mr. Smith, there's one set of facts that we can go on, and it's a set of facts that we've heard on the 13th, the 14th, and what's written in the newspaper. And the resolution we attach to every petition that law requires is attached to it has the $24 million. I can't change the facts that y'all put in your public meetings. I can't, y'all have not changed the facts except behind back doors. It was 24, it was 19, it's 19.9, now it's 17. Don't forget, we got 2.9 soft costs. Y'all are the ones that are giving us the facts. We're required to put the entire resolution that you put $24.25 million attached to our petition, and that's the facts that we have.
You referred to the July 13th meeting. Just set aside the fact that there's been a lot of additional information come out since then that makes your argument a little bit on the shaky side. But let me read to you what happened on July 13th, if you will.
Right.
Would you? I'm reading for the minutes that were approved and signed by each one of the commissioners here. And all commissioners were at that meeting. This was from Mr. Henderson. On the 13th, he says, what makes it critical is not the money. It's the timing of the notices and your schedule for a regular meeting. And going forward, later, I said, Bob, referring to Mr. Henderson, just so everything is clear, if we were to tell the newspaper today to change the notice to say not to exceed $24,250,000, that doesn't commit us at this time, but it gives us leeway and flexibility to go through the process. Mr. Henderson, yes, you have not committed to county until you come back on August 31st and approve the definitive sales. Whatever it is, some number between 14 and 24, whatever the number is, that's what you're committing to. Commissioner Smith, so the problem before us today is simply if we make a decision to keep our options open, the higher number, it's simply just keeping an option open. Mr. Henderson, yes. Commissioner Smith, fair enough. Mrs. Russo made some comments. I won't read them. Commissioner Cheney then made a motion to seek $24,250,000. Commissioner Smith, I don't think the motion should be to seek $24,250,000. I think the motion should be to put a notice in the newspaper with a maximum amount, not to exceed $24,250,000. So you're sitting here today telling us that you've ignored everything else that's happened. Since we, a week ago, we came back with a financial plan that laid out plainly what we were going to do. And you're hiding behind that particular thing. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm telling you, I have to go by law. When we have
We have to
petition
go
against
by law,
resolution,
sir.
when we go against a petition, against the resolution, we are required to attach the resolution that was put in the newspaper. That's what the petition is about. I can't change the numbers
I hope you
to
get
what
the,
y'all
I
just
hope
done.
you get the numbers and signatures. I want to have this conversation.
And the
with
facts are the facts.
all the voters out there.
Okay.
All right.
I'm bound by your numbers, whether you have leeways to be $1 or 24. I can't say $1 when you have the leeway 24 million. I have to go with the facts that you put in
All
the
right,
paper.
Mr. Kane, thank you. We have a motion and a second.
For
No.
what?
Oh,
We
I'm
haven't
sorry,
yet.
we don't have it.
Can we get some input from Bob and?
And is bond counsel going to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Join us too?
Michelle, you
Yeah,
had
yeah, we
some
need to hear
input.
about the election deadlines.
Oh, this is David Mendez. I'm available if you want to.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez.
Yeah. So what's which specific question do you want me to address?
Can we wait? We're gonna hear from the election administrator first, and then can we ask you legal questions as soon as
Thank
she's
you.
done?
Sure. There you go.
Okay, so you guys know that I just do what I'm supposed to be doing for you guys. So I just want to, you guys want to state facts, so let's state facts. I'm not asking them to turn in their petition to me 8 days in advance. What I'm asking for is enough time to certify the petition. On a normal petition, petitioners are allowed to turn it in by their deadline, which is August the 31st. The petitioners are asking that I have it certified by that date, so I need enough time for the people in my office to go line by line, signature by signature, and confirm that everyone that has signed is eligible and that it counts. I'm not asking the petitioners to bring it to me 8 days in advance. I'm asking for 4 days to get it done. Since then, I've received information from the petitioners that they would like to do a supplemental, which they do fall into that just due to the fact that they have a very strict deadline. The last day they can bring it to me in order to supplement it is Friday, and I'm asking for it on Monday. So I just want to make this clear to the court that I am not hindering them. I'm not asking them to do anything that is against the law. I'm just asking them to give my office the opportunity to serve everybody.
So Michelle, okay, I think have a pretty much of a consensus. I mean, they want it to come to a vote.
Right.
What we're looking at is we want to get it on the November 3rd election.
Right.
What's a drop dead date we need to move to do it?
August 17th.
When do you need it?
When do I need the petition?
No, our resolution. If we resolve to put it on the election,
August 17th.
you can get it on that day and you can turn it around if we give it
Yes.
to you. Okay.
That's the absolute deadline. That's whenever the very last thing can be put on there to be.
I was
anything on
thinking
the
that you
ballot.
needed a little time to turn around our resolution even.
You
Yes,
need
sir.
time to certify.
Yes.
No, I'm not talking
We're not
about
talking
the
about petition. She's just saying that if you guys,
When's our last date to be able to vote to get it on the agenda?
August the 17th is the absolute last day that anything can be added to the November
So
election.
if we, instead of having a special meeting this week, instead, we're going to have a regular meeting next Monday. If we voted at the regular meeting next Monday, the 17th, and the vote was positive and we
Right.
approved it to put it on the ballot, you could get it on the ballot. You wouldn't have
Yes.
trouble turning it around.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, you got a bunker, you got
Yeah, we got a bond counsel.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Mr. Mendez, any questions for Mr. Mendez?
Sure, I do. I mean, Mr. Mendez and I talked about this on Friday. I'm just trying to sort out in my own mind and for everyone here, as I understand it, we cannot go forward with a CO bond resolution today unless we get the petition, which doesn't look like we're going to do. So what's on the table for us is a GO petition instead. Can't do that today because it's not on the agenda. We could do that Thursday if we had a special meeting. We could do it next Monday. Can you tell us whether there are legal traps if we try to do it either of those two ways?
Well, no, I mean, you have until August 17th to call a general obligation bond election if you want to do so. You can do it at a regular or special meeting. As long as it's properly posted on the agenda for action, that's all you need to do.
So next Monday, we could either call a CO or a GO, depending on if we've received the petition by that deadline or not?
If the petition has been reviewed and an appropriate number of signatures have been certified to the commissioner's court by the clerk, then the court may act on the CO petition and call an election based on that.
So we can't actually act on it until it's been certified. We can't just have it submitted. We'd have to have the certification process completed before we can vote on it?
Right.
Yes, it requires a certification that an appropriate number of signatures are on it to meet the 5% requirement.
One more thing. I understand that there's a difference between how it shows up on the ballot, depending on whether it's a CO or a GO, having to do with whether it's broken down into categories or a lump sum. Can you explain that for us?
There really isn't. I don't think, as a result of some legislation that occurred last session, that it's going to make any difference in how you list it, because what the statute says, what Chapter 271 says on certificates, is an election should be held in the manner provided for in Government Code Chapter 1251. Government Code Chapter 1251 explains how and lays out how a bond election is called. And last session, the legislature said each measure that is being presented to the voters has to be a single purpose. So A courthouse is a purpose that would need to be separated out. A drainage project like the shoreline projects would be a type of measure that would be a single purpose. And if you're building a hospital or a micro hospital or whatever that thing's called, you'd put that as a separate item. And so I don't think there's a real difference in how you put it out, but there are different types of elections. One is for general obligation is secured by the full faith and credit of Aransas County and the ad valorem taxes, solely the ad valorem taxes. The COs, as they were proposed, and the way we'd probably put them on the ballot is an election in which the bonds would be secured by the ad valorem taxes. And your notice says a combination of that plus a pledge of the landfill revenues of the county. So
Now, that's something you mentioned on Friday, and my immediate question was, will that make a difference in our marketing or the price or the interest rate that we could command? And I understand the answer is no.
well, the pricing and all that is a question I leave to Mr. Henderson, because I don't know if an investor would find a substantial difference between a bond secured by the ad valorem taxes by themselves or the ad valorem taxes and a combination of that with the landfill stuff.
So that's a question we'd need answered by Bob Henderson.
Yeah.
He's here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mendez, Commissioner Smith, I do have one further question that maybe you can weigh in on.
Sure.
I've heard, I think Mr. Henderson mentioned this, that the county has certain leeway to waive technical deficiencies of the petition. Is that true?
Yeah. Let's just say when the certification is brought to you, and if there was something as to a form or item there that you felt, that you wanted to waive, I think you have some discretion there. You want to make sure you had the form of signatures, the number of signatures to have a valid petition. But if, let's say, somebody's signature failed in some minor fashion, I think the court could consider that fact and have some discretion.
But we couldn't waive the number of signatures?
I don't think so. I think, in order for you to trigger your authority, the statute is pretty clear that the clerk shall certify to you that at least 5% of the appropriate number of voters of the county have signed a petition. I think you want to trigger your authority based on the 5%. If she doesn't, if she says, well, there's a couple of signatures that have this issue or whatever, then that's, I think, where you would have to weigh it.
Like some of the other governmental regulations that I've heard, that one actually kind of causes me to say, well, what would be wrong with giving the people a right to vote, even if they didn't come up with the number of signatures? I mean, what's the harm? I don't expect an answer on that. I'm just surmising.
I think if I understood you right, Mr. Mendez, we can't instantly certify it when we receive the submission. We have to do at least some due diligence. Even if we try to do it quickly, we can't turn it around on a dime.
The statute says that the clerk shall certify the petition to you guys. And so you'd want to go through that step to have authority to act on it. Again, that's for acting on the CO petition.
Sure. So if we're in a time crunch, we can't necessarily solve it with the CO. We may still have to solve it with a GO.
The clearer cut way to solve this and call an election without any question is a GO bond election ordered by the 17th.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Any other questions? How about for Mr. Henderson? He's here.
Mr. Mendez, this is Commissioner Cheney. Whenever you're talking about the numbers, what is the source of voters and what is the source of percentage? Where's that come from? Does it come from the registered voters at the last major election or registered voters at the last?
It is the registered voters as listed on the rolls at the time the petition's filed. But as I recall, and this is governed by Chapter 277, the election administrator can probably guide us here, is I think when you're measuring a petition, the people that are marked with an S, suspense voters, are not counted in that item, and I defer to her in that regard. But there is a specific chapter that governs that.
Thanks. All right, any other discussion on that item number 9?
Yes, I would just, can we hear from Bob Henderson on the question of whether it will affect our price of borrowing, our cost of borrowing if we go with a GO instead of a CO?
Thank you, Judge and members of the court. I'm Bob Henderson with RBC Capital Markets. We have the honor and privilege
Bob,
of being the financial.
The people on Zoom can't hear you unless you speak right into that microphone.
Okay. Because I'll speak a little louder. How's that?
Thank you. That's good.
My name is Bob Henderson. I'm with RBC Capital Markets. We have the honor and the privilege of being the county's financial advisor. The short answer to your question, Commissioner Laubach, is no, there would be no difference. The primary credit that the rating agencies and the investors would consider is the tax pledge of the transaction. And so they would be rated similarly, and they'd have similar interest rates in the marketplace.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right. So there's no action.
Sounds like we could still decide to do it on Thursday, or if we don't think it's going to put us in too much of a time crunch, we could do it next Monday. I'm sorry, we're going to decide later?
We don't have to decide right now.
Could we talk about it right now?
I think we talked about it.
I think we talked about it quite a bit already.
Yeah, my understanding, we can't do it without the petition being turned in. We can't just decide we want to do it on our own.
We
because
can go to a CO.
We can go to a GO bond.
GO.
And the question is whether we'll do that this Thursday or next Monday.
Not on today's agenda. The judge would have to call a special meeting. That's his prerogative. If he calls a special meeting, which I would encourage him to do, we could then vote on that to go out for a GO.
And in either case, if for some reason we can't get a special meeting on Thursday, we still have a clear path for doing it next Monday at a regular meeting.
I don't see one on Thursday.
And none of our experts in the room have anything to tell us about why we're making a mistake there, and we'll run out of time. I think we have a clear path. Everybody agrees? Okay.
All right. So public members' names for alternates for salary grievance committee in accordance with section 152.015 local government code. Valerie, you have a box we can draw that out. But Commissioner Laubach did the drawing.
Actually, the law says you have to do it.
I have.
I didn't get to do it before.
All right. Floyd Gilmore. Angela Marie Kimmick. Morgan Basket. These are alternates. Joseph Taylor. Diana Corvallo. Perry Pegrazzi. All right, that's been done.
Question?
Yes.
Was number 9 tabled?
It was.
I guess we should.
Deficient.
What action do we take when an agenda item simply can't be acted on? Do we just pass it by, or does it have to have official resolution? We have to have a vote on it, rejecting it because it doesn't work.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes, I move that we reject my own agenda item because it doesn't work.
Motion made, do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Discuss approve, disapprove second quarter 2020 report from Rockport Cultural Arts District. Stay.
Judge and Commissioners, thank you for this time. This is Jennifer Day. I'm the Executive Director of the Rockport Cultural Arts District. This is a second quarter, April to June 2020 report. I'm just going to hit the highlights. If you have any questions, please. The April 2020, the second annual Kite Festival was canceled. That was a free family event. The past 2 years, we've had each year over 2,000 visitors to that. It's a very popular festival. It's turned into a wonderful opportunity to market Rockport. So April is the official kite month in the state of Texas, and we do look to do that again next year. We've also worked with the downtown merchants. We've helped with the reopening of the merchants and advertising, getting those openings on TV and getting them communicated through Facebook. We also do a lot of promotion with the farmers market, the makers market, which is locally made artist work, and they're very excited about that. There's a very long list of local artists who are eager to have a booth and be able to show. There's also in the district, if you haven't seen it, the little library, which is opened at Rockport Daily Grind in their courtyard, which according to Michelle McMahon, the owner of Daily Grind, is very, very active, especially with kids' books, which is real important to the education of our children. One of the other things, and one of the major things that we're working on, is the San Antonio-Aransas Pass Railroad Depot project, and that is a pretty big project. We're looking to make that a main transportation hub within the Cultural Arts District. We have a plan the first year for exterior restoration. The second year will focus on the interior restoration. We're looking to make it offices for the Cultural Arts District as well as the Aransas County Historical Society. So those will be housed in the back part of the depot. The front part of the depot, we want to make an exhibit area, a museum of railroad artifacts. And we have a lot of railroad artifacts here. We have a lot of individuals who have stories and pictures. And by the way, the railroad community in the state of Texas and beyond, we're focusing our advertising on the state of Texas, is a very large tourist sector and a very specialized tourist sector, but a very large one. And one of our largest advocate is Mr. Hugh Hemphill, who is the manager of the state of Texas Transportation Museum in San Antonio. He is working right now on adding a separate landing page to their museum specifically for the Rockport Depot. We expect to get a lot of visibility through that. He will also be a featured speaker once we close on the property. We also plan to have bicycle rentals there, a great opportunity. I will tell you that just personally, we've had a bicycle business years ago with Angel Rose Bed and Breakfast, which I own, and I still get calls to this day for bicycle rentals. We quit doing that years ago. That's a big thing for families. And we eventually plan on adding exterior public bathrooms, which is something that is desperately needed in the district area. I will point out to you as well as the American Planning Association in their final report in January of 2020 noted the depot as one of the most interesting remaining historical architectural artifacts. It's visually unique and architecturally significant, and it's largely intact and quite attractive as it stands. In their report, they noted the depot integrated with the master plan as a transportation hub. Very much a supporting report based on the initiative and what we are trying to achieve. Just historically, I've got a lot of historical data in my report as well. You can see here, and this is a great slide, you can see here that where the depot stands, where the star is, and that going straight out on North Street, that will be where the Center for the Arts, their new complex will be. And this will, in a very large way, transform the Cultural Arts District to a more pedestrian-friendly area. You have the winery there, you have retail stores, you've got restaurants, and so it's really a very active, and you can kind of visually understand the impact of this initiative. We plan in the spring to have a book signing. There is a book that the Texas A&M University Press is publishing in spring. It was written by Kay Betts and by Vicki Moon Merchant, called Boats, Bays, and Birds. And we are planning a book signing there in the spring. So just to summarize the Depot project, it continues to highlight the artistic legacy and the vibrant creative community that we have. It encourages new life and economic development. It showcases the preservation and reuse of our historical resources. It establishes a new tourism sector, very important, enhances our community's cohesiveness and sense of place, and it fosters our local cultural development. Some of the other things, just very quickly, is we have, we have supported Rockport Little Theater's acquisition of property, and I continue to help them through funding initiatives to guide them. Obviously, another great asset in the district. The things like the flags downtown and adding color. We're working on the Leadership Aransas County Youth Mural, a new mural coming up. I've listed several opportunities for grants that we have submitted, and I will just state that we are designated by the state of Texas Commission on the Arts, and certainly have their backing in our initiatives that we're doing.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Make a motion to approve the report.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Let's move this good order 012-2020 appointment of 2020 and 2021 election judges and alternates.
Move to approve.
Motion made and seconded. Commissioner Smith, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Mr. Cheney. Okay. Item 13, this is discussion only, no nothing to vote on.
Right.
Early election sites. Michelle?
Right. I wanted to come talk to you guys about the upcoming November election. What we've come across, and I'm sure you guys have all heard, the governor has extended early voting by an additional week for the upcoming general election. So with that being said, and with everything that we're having to put into place in regards to social distancing and following all of the regulations by CDC, I wanted to come talk to you guys about possibly opening a 5th location on election day. So what we're looking at, typically we send out to most of our sites 10 machines. And with social distancing in place, we can't fit 10 machines in these buildings any longer. We're going to have longer ballots. We're going to have, the city's going to be on there, possibly the NAV district. And if you guys choose to add on bond election, we're going to have that. We also no longer have straight ticket voting. So it's going to take longer for the voters to vote. Luckily, we are having an update done to our voting equipment to where it's not just one race per screen. There'll be multiple races per screen instead of just like every race hit next and then hit next. I've really been racking my mind on this, like how am I going to accommodate everybody? According to our numbers, we're looking at possibly having up to an 80% turnout in voters, which is larger than what we had even 2 years ago or 4 years ago. So I've actually been speaking with the
Careful with the mic.
Thanks. With the town of Fulton, and they've said that we could use the Fulton Convention Center on election day. And if need be, should we have any type of a grand amount of people on election, or excuse me, during early voting, we could possibly use our building off and on throughout early voting to extend a second early voting location.
Which building did you say again?
The Fulton Convention Center, which used to be Paws and Taws.
Cheryl, the additional site that you're seeking this morning, what's the cost of it?
They're not going to charge us anything.
I'm talking about the staff and men.
Oh, it would have to be at least 8 people there at $12 an hour. On election day, that's a 14-hour day. So for the site alone is probably $500. I'd have to really sit down and crunch the numbers, but I'm just guesstimating.
And you don't have that in your budget?
No.
You think if we need it for this election that's coming up?
Yes.
It's going to be a big election.
Huge. We've even been contemplating, and I mean, don't hold me to this because I don't think anyone's ever tried it, and it's been a lot of talk throughout the state, but we're even considering like a drive-through voting option, which would allot for a car to pull in and then vote from their car without them having to get out. But we don't really have the location for that. It would require us closing streets and getting people to direct traffic.
Well, you have a drive-up location at the Fulton Convention Center under roof.
Well, we could, but the only other thing that's really keeping me from it is most of our election clerks are older. They'd have to stand for 14 straight hours. We don't know what the temperature is going to be. And plus we really don't want to have our equipment out in the air. You know, we have salt in the air. We don't have any more corrosion. We've already been through that with our election equipment. So, I mean, there's just a lot of things in play. I just don't know how I feel about it. I know it'd be like, ideally, it'd be great. Sure, we'd love for a car to pull up and that's just to check them in from their seat. But then the interaction is even greater because then our machines are being touched by everybody. We're always constantly having to sanitize them. It would increase the number of supplies we're going to need, and we'd need more than 8 people because our workers can't stand for 14 hours walking to and from and then exposing themselves.
All right. I would point out that when the budget for this year was developed was a year ago and nobody got hurt of COVID-19. That and the projection of the cost, even if it's an extra $1,000, I think the additional monies should be allocated towards this. And I would make a motion to approve the request.
I'll second.
Okay.
I know you got some grant money. Can any of that be used for these excess costs?
I do have some money that was given to us for CARES Act. So we have been buying things for our election clerks, such as gloves and masks. And well, of course, we already have hand sanitizer here within the county. So yes, I can use some of that money. And then with the HAVA money, we can buy additional voting equipment.
Can you use it to pay the hourly rate of the excess people you'll need to open a 5th center?
I could if I had an excess amount of money, but the money that they gave to us is not a large amount of money.
You pretty much spend it up on that.
Right.
Okay.
All right, this could be an action item. And he made the motion.
Okay.
Is it actually on the agenda? I mean, we have.
It says discuss, approve, disapprove.
Okay. So
I made the motion.
a request to open an additional voting spot on the election day.
Yes.
Early voting and election day?
No, just election
Just
day.
election day.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Chance, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Discuss. Evaluate proposal to select vendor for the purchase of food. Financial. Mr. Reed, come on up.
You want a new broom?
Get to the broom. So we did go out for proposals for a new loader. We had 7 proposals back with the specifications we were asking for. There were 2 vendors that met all the specifications. The one that had the lowest price that met our specifications, the Holt Caterpillar at $186,000 and change. And that's what I recommend that we approve.
Is this in your budget?
This is
already?
being paid for with the CO, 2016 CO.
Holt has local service people here.
They're in Victoria, I believe.
How about MP?
How about them? NP, they're also local. We'll hopefully not have to.
That's the only difference.
The price was the only difference of those two. Both of those met all the specifications.
All right, Mr. Reed, thank you. He made it.
Make a motion to approve Holt Cat for the purpose of road and bridges requirements.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Castro. All those in favor?
Aye.
Select vendor for purchase of a street sweep.
We had three bids or three proposals. The one that was the lowest that met our specifications is Doggett at 58,950. And I recommend that.
So some additional brooms wouldn't be able to do the job, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it could do it. It would just take a lot longer.
I make a motion
This is
to-
it's a sweeper attachment on attachment on a tractor or something. Is that
No, this is an actual
motorized
machine,
sweeper with a
motorized,
spinning. Okay.
yeah.
It's not the kind you see on TV.
It's not.
I make the motion to accept the low bid from Doggett.
Second.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Cheney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Discuss, approve, disapprove, authorize the county judge to sign a contract amendment. Engineering to extend time performance of February 12, 2019 agreement with professional services. Green hazard mitigation grant proposal program projects. Hurricane Murray Brook roadway flood protection. Fulton Beach Road, FEMA project number PR 4332017, Shell Ridge Road, FEMA project PR 433200016, Harvey Road, FEMA project number PR 4332-015, December 3rd, 2019, May 22nd, 2023.
John, since there's still some question as to the Fulton Beach Road going forward, you're not going to have them do any more work until that's put to rest, right?
No,
But it is included in this extension.
this is, we requested an extension months and months ago from Tatum, and they granted the extension, and Mott McDonald just needs to bring their contract up to meet those new dates.
This is, each project is listed individually so that one can be pulled out. And not affect
Each project is separately funded and separately permitted.
John, I think on both of these next, the Shell Ridge and the Lamar, we need to make sure to have public hearings in wherever the most accessible site for each one of those, maybe in Lamar Fire Station, maybe wherever Shell Ridge would like, to where we
Shell Ridge.
don't have the problem with we're having with the Fulton Beach Road.
We had public outreach hearings on all three projects. Lamar Beach Road was the first, and we had at least 30 to 40 residents in that meeting at that time. And
We need to have another one.
yeah, we don't mind that at all. And Shell Ridge Road, we held it at the Aquarium Education Center, and it was 30 to 40 people as well.
Yeah, I think,
We don't mind that.
I have had people ask me in Lamar, can we have another hearing? Is there one scheduled yet, or do you have an
No,
idea when?
we have not.
we need to go ahead and schedule Shell Ridge for sure, as soon as reasonably possible.
It wouldn't hurt to have one from one or two.
Right.
Yes. Make sure we don't have this problem again.
No problem at all. Not at all.
Can you get back with us, next
Sure.
couple days or so to find which?
We'll get with Mom McDonald, who does the PowerPoint. I think everybody's seen the PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll
Give us a couple of.
explain to them.
So we
Just for the record, Fulton Beach Road had a public outreach meeting for the folks of Fulton Beach Road. We only had like 6 residents show up. We had one at the NAB district, we had one at the city of Rockport, and we had one at the town of Fulton. Plus, we advertised it in the newspaper. So we have reached out as much as I think we possibly could to get folks to attend and pay attention to it.
John, the PowerPoint that was given, I was at that Lamar meeting at the
Sure you
fire
were.
station. The PowerPoint that was given that night, can I get that in a digital form? I've
Sure.
had lots of people ask me lately.
Not a problem.
Okay.
I think a lot of times when you're applying for grants, people don't really think you're gonna get them when they first hear about it.
Well,
And dealt with y'all, have we?
Not at all.
Yeah, I like.
Okay.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We have, Ms. Russo, you had a question on that?
I had questions, but Mr. Strawman has answered them.
Discuss, approve, disapprove.
Well,
authorize
we
county-
didn't vote.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove, authorize county judge to sign a memorandum of understanding departments, state health services, to provide county with certain confidential data extracted from designated death records from state health services. This is, as you might not know, I'm not getting the death notices from the state. Yeah, that's why we have this. I get the death notice the same time everybody else does on the DSHS website. This is just a.
Yes, sir.
Move to approve. I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded, but
These are deaths for COVID related.
yes.
Or anything else?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All deaths, Jeff?
No.
Just COVID.
Just COVID death.
Discuss, approve, disapprove resolution 34/2020, a resolution authorizing the selection of award professional engineering service contract to Strand Associates for various community development block grant mitigation programs, and be supplemented by hazard mitigation programs managed by the general land office.
I have
Did you just mention projects that we're talking about?
Right, is this the 43 million, John? That was recently approved and received?
This is the last of this is the fourth round of funding. This is the last round of community block grant funds. It's called the MIT grants or mitigation grants.
Can you go over what grants they actually are?
Well,
Is this one's to be applied for?
Oh, actually,
still?
Kim is on and she's
These
been
are the
working more on
ones
this.
to be applied for, yes.
Yes.
Future applications.
Others
Right.
were already.
Part of this process is you have to procure a grant administrator, which we did recently, and you have to procure an engineer to do the studies and all the preliminary stuff.
Related to $4.1 billion.
4.6, yes.
And do you have a proposed list of?
There's a number of projects. Some of them are, again, we got some questions to answer on mitigation projects. There's some drainage projects, because this is a 50-50. When I'm talking too much or too fast, let me know. This is a 50-50, what they call low to moderate income area. So 50% of the projects will be low to moderate income, and the 50% of the projects will not have to be.
I have some issues with some of these. We've picked some engineers that I don't feel like that their expertise was in all of the projects, because there's a large variation in the projects in some of the banks, and I'm concerned that maybe we're lumping too many projects under one engineer.
I understand. There's a process that has to be followed through, and this is how we kind of get into this process.
These folks were approved by a committee rating.
Right. There's a committee rating.
The other people that were on. Who were the other?
You know what? I was not involved with it. I don't really know the folks.
I can
Kim,
elaborate on the ranking. So the committee, we received 7 proposals. The committee ranked all of those. The first ranking, of course, was Strand Associates. Mott McDonald came in second, and LNV came in third as far as the committee ranking. And so if we're going to have multiple engineers, we would need to recognize those ratings.
So we can choose
Do we
more
have
than
the
one
ability
engineer.
to have multiple engineers?
Yes,
We're
you can. One of the issues that we're working right now is to vet the different projects. And in the last meeting that I spoke with y'all, we indicated that we would be coming back with the recommended projects. But we need an engineer on board, as well as we now have our grant administrator that's going to help us vet those projects. And then
Does the dog want to say anything there? I mean.
Could we add engineers later? We don't need to do it today.
We're in very bad shape as far as timing for engineers. The first round of grants is due October 22nd, so we have about 2 months. You have to decide on your projects well in advance of that because there's citizen participation requirements that we're going to have to put on the agenda for the Commissioners Court. So
if we want freedom to add additional engineers, today is the day we should do it. We should choose somebody, 2 or 3 down the list if that's how we're going to do it.
You have to go back and do it again, right, Kim?
We would have to do it again and go further down the list.
William, what is
Yeah, if you're going to
your
do
opinion
that,
on that? My first blush would be you could select more than one.
You're altering the RFP, but if you selected multiple ones based on the ranking of the committee, that would be okay. But if you said we needed to go out and change the advertisement, that would put us back on the time frame.
So if we stuck with this list,
to have, if we're doing drainage, somebody that is the best one in drainage, not necessarily that especially is something else. David, do you have I know 2 of them on the list. I never heard of this one. Do you?
David always has an opinion.
What's your opinion,
You want the
David?
mic?
So what I understand, we are selecting an engineer that will be the engineer for all the projects that are coming out of this grant. Now, there may be 20 or there may be 2. I don't know. There may be, I don't know, $30 million.
Closer.
And the way it worked with the last CDBG DR, we had one engineer, $30 million, and no ability to hire another engineer or more engineers to help with those projects. And if that's what we're doing here, I have reservations about that. We may get $30 million in projects again, and we may have more work than one engineer can do, whether they're the right one or not. Obviously we want the right one, but we want enough engineers to get this done in the time frame that GLO is going to give us, which may be another 2 years.
David, were you included in the selection committee?
I was.
This group was acceptable to
I
you?
don't have a problem with the engineer.
Fair enough.
You don't have a problem with just using Strand, or you mean everybody on the
I don't
list?
have a problem with Strand as qualified to do these projects. I might have a problem with only Strand being the only engineer that we do use for $30 million worth of projects that have to be done in a short timeline.
One of the criteria that should have been looked at in those projects by that committee was the ability to deliver based on their size.
That is a criteria that's evaluated.
But you don't
and
recommend-
it was in the RFQ. What I would say is that you can award more than one. We can go back and look at expertise, but we will, when we negotiate the contracts, have to probably assign projects. And if the project gets funded, then that engineer gets that project. If it doesn't get funded, they don't. That's as far as it goes.
Kim, do we have the right to or does that engineer have the right to subcontract out if their workload is too great?
They do, subject to county express approval.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. And absolutely they can do that, but we can't make them do that. That's their discretion.
That can't be in part of our contract negotiation?
I don't think so.
No, you cannot direct subcontracts.
Right.
So that's illegal.
It's the joys of dealing with the federal government.
I'm sorry?
That is part of the joys of dealing with the federal government.
Right.
David, would you recommend hiring 2 or 3 of these people instead of just Strand?
I would be happy to have a pool of engineers that we can use as needed for, depending on the number of projects that we get.
And Kim and William, do you have any problem with hiring 2 or 3 of the people on the list, numbers 1, 2, and 3? I mean, selecting.
I do
hiring.
not. I do not. I think you could go down to number 3 with no problem.
I
And
think
like Kim said, it would be subject to, the work would be subject to, getting the grant and matching it up with.
They'd be on the list and available to us.
But let me be clear, we've got to assign by contract which grants they're going to apply for. I don't think we can flip around and say, oh, well, so-and-so got this. We're going to have to make that divvying up on the front
Today,
end with the contracts. Not today. As you're aware, y'all's process is you select the vendors and then we come back with a contract. So we
So when
would
we go-
have to,
Sorry, Jeff. Well, so when we come back to the contract stage, that's when we can start allocating engineers to contracts? We don't need to do it today?
Right, and we had presented lists of projects, but we're still vetting those ourselves, so we can bring you back some recommendations.
Can we, under the posting for this thing, can we choose, say for an example, there's one of the three that is specialist in anything that David needs a specialist in, can we set that project aside? You know, can we be definitive on what they handle and have like 2 or 3 to handle a block of projects? I don't know how you would manage that, but
And can we preserve that flexibility today? Do we need to change anything about what we're doing today to preserve that flexibility for later?
well, that's probably a policy.
The best thing you can do today is go select 2, 3, whatever your desire, and then let us vet the projects and bring you back the recommendations on who's the best fit. And that's probably about as most flexibility as you can get without doing the process over again, which we don't
So
have time
we
to
can
do.
ask David. We can ask David to tell us if there was one of the engineers that put in, one of the 3 that put in that he would prefer to have on a specific project.
Well, we've used L&B before and had real good success.
I'm really not concerned with the quality of work from any of those engineers. I'm concerned about the capacity to do the work in the time frame that we have. And we don't really, and if we said top 3, that's fine. If we're able to select them after or assign them a project after we know what the projects are, what projects are funded.
We already have the number 2 pick. We already have him loaded, heavily loaded with projects.
We do.
we will have to select them before, right when I come back to Commissioner's Court, what they're going to be working on, unless William can advise otherwise, because they're going to start having to work on the project in order for us to apply. That's why we're trying to hire them right now, is we have to have engineer certifications on our applications on the cost estimates and general scope.
Well, suppose we select Strand and L&B today. Does that solve your problem?
If you could allow the top 3 to be selected, and then the staff to have the discretion to match the projects up with their abilities, I think that would work, and we could bring you back the appropriate recommendations. And we always work closely with David in his office, so I feel comfortable we can do that.
I personally, I have some concern that we've given Mike McDonald, that we basically overloaded him, and I would rather rate L&B ahead of them as far as getting in the mix.
I think the rating is what the rating is.
The rating is what the rating is. It has to be blind and non-objective. You can't direct that kind of selection.
If we can use them all.
And you know, I understand that we need engineering support to write these grant proposals. My problem is that, you know, we're married to them for the rest of the project. I would like to be able to separate that out somehow.
Kim?
We'll separate it out over the week if we get that discretion, but I think we're going to have to pick and up front.
Kim, it sounds to me like Commissioner Castleline is volunteering to be on that committee in the future.
I'll be glad to be on that.
Absolutely.
Committee. I don't have a problem. I don't want them getting in my neighborhood and not doing a good job.
I agree.
And that's where some of those grants. If you're talking about load and mod, that's my hood.
Well, I think I moved then that we select Strand and Mott and L&B for this initial stage of working on the application, so that we'll have a large enough pool to choose from later. Yeah, so we would have to table it till Monday then?
Does that mess up your schedule, Kim?
Yes, it does. We'd like to proceed today, please.
But we can't proceed today. That ties us up too much if we do that today.
Yeah.
We could do it Thursday.
William,
How about Thursday?
William,
Yeah,
you said we're probably more than likely going to have another meeting on Thursday and no later than Monday next week. Is that critical?
Well, the sooner the better. We've got an October deadline. That's what Kim is concerned about. And really what we're talking about is the selection of the three and delegation to the staff to match the best projects up. And obviously we can involve the Commissioner Casterline and David in that process. So if you're comfortable with a motion like that, selection of the top three and delegation to match the projects, I think we can move forward.
William, does
The way it's structured,
Thursday
it
work
looks
for
like
you?
it's an up or down, Mr.
William,
Wilson.
if we have to, it sounds like we can't do it today. If we have a choice between Thursday and Monday, does Thursday work much better for you?
Yes.
If that's your insistence, absolutely. But just say every day we lose is really important to the team if we're going to be able to meet the grant. It's the grant deadline that's driving. It's not necessarily our concern.
But that's October.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll make a motion.
It is, but we will have to, by September 20th, we'll have to have a public hearing on the proposed projects to get citizen participation. And so we're really looking at only a month or less, depending on how this vendor process goes.
That's actually about 40 days from today.
Yeah,
It's
and that is
45 days.
super tough.
Yeah, public input is the thing that kills us because we have to comply with that grant condition or we can't submit the project.
We can't do it today. We're just offering Thursday or Monday.
Understood. Thursday, earlier the better is better.
I make a motion to table this, defer it
Commissioner
until.
Cheney, second.
Second.
Smith.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Discuss, approve, disapprove, authorize county judge to sign a contract agreement with task force for appraisal services for 2000 Highway 35 Business North.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approve, authorize county judge to sign a contract agreement with Wild Associates for environmental services for 2000 Highway 35.
Motion to approve.
Motion made.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Castleman, all those in favor?
Aye.
Budget line item, no. Budget discussion, yeah.
Do I need to do something to share this, Colin, or are you gonna? I can do budget. I can't do computer. The budget you're gonna see is based on our no new revenue tax rates as well as do you want to tell them or you want me to tell them? We have worked with the Fed on the rate for housing our federal prisoners. They have negotiated a rate of $76 a day with the opportunity. Well, I haven't heard. Have you heard whether they offered a 4-year comeback? We asked for 3 years to be able to come back and renegotiate. Haven't heard if they approved that or not, but 76, we were getting $63 a day per inmate. So this budget that you're seeing right now actually takes into account that increase as well as the no new revenue rate. And what's the increase that we get from 233,000 is what we attribute to getting a higher rate for federal prisoners? No, that's what the change in fund balance would be. The prisoners is actually $427,000 is what we anticipate for the addition.
And what was it
But,
last
well,
year?
So that's the total or the increase? $427,000 would be the increase. Basically, the extra $13 per prisoner per day.
So you were saying if you taking that good news into account, we're now looking at dipping into the general fund balance only 233,000 would have been more if we hadn't had this good change.
To put it into perspective too, we started off the year with a 6.9 million balance general fund. We're going to project as of the end of this year around 6.6 million. This will reduce it down to somewhere between 6.3 million and 6.4 million.
Yes, sir. And this does take into account all of the new positions, the extra payroll that we have because of the 27 pay periods. All of that is already built into these numbers. We do have a spreadsheet that we can show you if commissioners chose to give a cost of living, what that would do to the effect on the fund balance. And general fund, it's about $200,000, a little over $200,000.
Right. It's particularly important also to point out that this is after if we adopt a tax rate that's actually a decline of about 1.8 cents too, which is a fair amount based on our tax level of about 3% probably.
And this budget factors in the projected cost for the borrowing if we do the $19.9 million bond or not?
This does have that. This no new rate is kind of an accumulation, but it does have that built into the debt portion of it.
Commissioner, whether that bond issue is actually approved or not will not impact this rate.
It would be the same rate.
Just clarifying for the record. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go.
Do y'all have
Any other discussion? Okay, discuss and take action on elected official salaries and expenses to be included in the budget.
I move we don't increase elected officials.
I was actually considering cutting the pay on the precinct 3, but after due consideration, I think I'll just leave it alone.
I'll second that motion.
Mine or Charlie?
No, yours, Bubba.
Motion made by
Everybody's.
Motion made, Commissioner Castline, no change. Second, Commissioner Cheney, all those in favor?
Aye.
Scheduled public hearing, 2021 budget.
We have the public hearing scheduled for August 24th at 8:45 prior to the commissioner's court.
It's AM.
Yes, sir. And then the final adoption would be scheduled for the 31st.
Thank you.
Discussion, possible action on record vote proposal 2020 tax rate. Yes, ma'am. Please come up to the mic.
Do you have some exact verbiage that somebody needs to read today?
She always looks so serious.
I think the exact verbiage is you propose to adopt such and such rate. And do you still have that chart that I gave you with the yellow?
You don't have this written out for me?
No,
I'm not sure I have that exact chart.
I'm trying to break habits that I won't be here next year to fill.
She's practicing.
I think I have it here somewhere.
So what you're
Yeah,
talking
so
about
the-
is the rate we talked about at the last.
The
meeting.
no new, well, I don't know. That's y'all's decision.
I mean, last time you were with us.
But all of these showed the no new revenue rate and then the rollback rate and then a rate in between. And I'm assuming you're going to propose one of those, someone is going to propose one of those rates for us to move forward.
What was the non-new tax?
I've got it. I've got it here.
The no new revenue rate, Jack, is 0.433 543. And that's the rate that Jackie has built into her budget.
Judge, I make a motion to,
Would you tell me the other two while you?
The 8% disaster calculation rollback voter approval rate, excuse me, new language. You don't need that one?
No.
Okay, the other one was the 3.5% standard calculation method, 0.445174.
And Jerry, the first number you gave us 0.433543, is that right?
That's correct.
Judge, I'd like to propose the adoption of the proposed tax rate of 0.433543 for the 2020 estimated levy.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Cheney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, I saw that that was unanimous, right?
Yes.
Because that is a record vote that will be published in the newspaper.
Thank you.
What is our current tax rate?
Our current tax rate is 0.451453. And Mr. Smith was correct on the 1.8 decrease.
1.8 cents per reduction.
Smith's motion include the road bridge rates, things like the other.
Yes, and when you propose to adopt, this is just proposing a rate. So when we meet to adopt the rate, then someone will have the pleasure of reading all those numbers broken out.
I think that needs not change.
So you're not going to be here?
No, I will, but that has to come from y'all. I don't make motions.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Discuss, approve, disapprove, scheduling a public hearing for proposed 2020 tax rate.
Because we went with the no new revenue rate, we did not have a public hearing.
Here.
That's what I thought.
Make a motion to approve that.
Second. Motion made and seconded, not to have one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approve, disapprove, time and date to adopt the 2021 budget for 2020 tax rate. So that would be
Those are scheduled for August 31st.
31st, yes.
Regular meeting. Thank you. We need to approve that, Judge.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the August 31 date.
So we're just approving.
Wait,
Wait, what are we voting on? We're just approving setting the meeting on that date? Okay,
That has to be done at a regular meeting.
right, and August 31st is one.
Discuss, approve, disapprove, budget.
Oh, we
line
didn't,
item
I'm sorry, I
transfer.
interrupted. I don't think we actually voted.
Voted.
Well, I didn't. Anyway, aye.
Unanimous.
That's right.
Discuss, approve, disapprove, budget line item transfer. Unanimous.
We have none.
Motion to approve.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove, accounts payable, payroll, and payroll liabilities.
This accounts payable does include the debt payments that we have, our semi-annual debt payments, so it does include the interest and then the principal on the payment. Other than that, it's normal.
Motion to approve the accounts payable.
Second.
Motion made.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cheney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Well, at this time, it's time for officials and department heads to bring up any subject that they'd like for the public to hear about.
I would like to bring up and thank the folks out at the transfer station. I've been really paying attention to how clean they've been keeping that. And I've been to a couple other ones since, this last year. And our transfer station is really doing well. I really want to tell the folks out there, both from cleaning stuff up to just get people in and out, that they're doing a really good job. And I want to thank them for that.
Judge, I'd like to state just once again, I look forward to having a public vote on the issuing of debt, whether it's COs or obligation. I think the plan that we put forth is a good plan. And I'm looking forward to answering any potential questions that the voters might have on this issue.
Yes. All right. Anyone else?
Move to adjourn.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.